Hello, hello, hello. Hope everyone's keeping well. Hope you can all hear me. Let's just quickly go over into OBS just to make sure everything's ticking along fine. Looks like the transitions are working well, so fantastic. Hello and welcome to the Mastering in the Box live stream for July. Today I just wanted to first and foremost say thank you. We are now up to over 1,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel, which is just amazing. So thank you once again for all your support. I am going to be doing a giveaway. I said this last time, I'm definitely going to be doing a giveaway. I just need to go through the formalities of it. I'm looking probably at something along the lines of the Melder Production M Compare plugin, because I think it's a great plugin for referencing for mastering purposes. So it probably be that, but it's just going through the actual technicalities of how we're going to do it. I don't want this to be a competition. It is going to be a giveaway. So watch this space for more details on that. So thank you once again. So 1,070 subscribers. It is going really well. So thank you once again for all your support. Normally for these live Q&As, these live streams, I try and do a little bit of a format and go through a particular topic, but I want this one to be a bit more informal. Very much live Q&A, so if you've got any questions at all, just say stick them in the chat and I'll come to the questions as we go through. So any questions you've got at all, then please let me know, drop me a note in the chat and we'll go through the questions as we go through. There are a few bits that I do want to kind of cover, but it's really kind of, it's going to be very informal and it's going to be a little bit more ad hoc based on some of the circumstances and some of the things that I'm going through at the moment. So just give you a very brief update. There's probably going to be quite a bit more content coming from me over the next few months, certainly at least. So my personal circumstances have changed somewhat, which is allowing me to really kind of get into producing some more content. I love doing this. I love providing the guidance, and I love the feedback I'm getting from you guys. It seems that the thing I love more than anything is the fact that you guys are seeing benefit from it, which is the best of all. That was the whole intention of this channel, was to really kind of give you the guidance you need for mastering. I know there's a lot of mastering information out there. Not all of it is good. Not all of it is practical. And from my experience, a lot of it tends to be from mix engineers rather than mastering engineers. So I'm really kind of pleased that that you guys are getting the maximum benefit from this. So yeah, I'm going to be able to put some more content out moving forward. So watch out for that. And if there is anything particular you want covered, then please let me know. I'm always up for ideas and suggestions. We'll probably be going for about an hour or so. We'll see what the maybe a bit longer. We'll see what the uptake is. Depends how many people will get involved. As I say, I want this to be very much kind of interactive. So if you've got any questions at all, then let me know. But part of my circumstances at the moment mean that I can actually start to really invest some more into the setup as well, which is really what I wanted to kind of cover today. So I kind of put in the description about we're going to cover some things around some room placement, maybe a bit about acoustics, looking a bit about computers and how we interact with computers and how we need computers for our day-to-day functions, whether it's recording, mixing, mastering. Brief look at some interfaces, potentially, maybe look at some decor and maybe even into monitoring. I'm very ambitious with the amount that we got to to cover in the topics there, but it's just something, it's just a few bits I want to kind of cover. Let's have a discussion, and as I say, I want this to be interactive. So anyway, if there's any of these topics that we're going to discuss and you've got any questions or you've got some advice for others, certainly advice for me. I'm learning all the time. So if you've got any information, then drop it in the chat and we can let's say we'll go through those as we go through, and more interactive the better. Just gonna have a quick slip of my beer. It's the first day in a long time over in the UK that we've had a good day's worth of sunshine, because we had so much rain. So I thought I'd have a cheeky Bud Light. So yeah, it's going to be more about setup today, and there's a lot of different things that I want to cover, but I'm not going to go too in depth. I want this to be very kind of, as I say, more informal, more ad hoc, more of a discussion. And this is really kind of geared around my setup and where I'm going with things at the moment. And I'm going on a little bit of a journey. I've been in this room now for a good couple of years now. I've had the monitoring set up that I've got for quite some time, probably about 5-6 years. These are not, by any stretch of the imagination, these are not mastering grade monitors, but I know them, I love them, I know what to do with them. These are just some Tascams that I've had for quite some time, and I really enjoy them. I know how they sound in this room, and it's probably about time that I'm due a bit of an upgrade, and I want to go through some of the things to consider if you're looking at monitors for certainly for mastering and with mixing as well. There is a little bit of a crossover, not too much, but there are some considerations that we need to take into account. But I'm really going to be focusing on this room because it needs to be needs a lot of work doing to it. So as you can see behind, so if I point over there, so that panel there, that is where the old desk used to be. So when we first moved into this room, I had my desk set up there, and we've got all the panels down the side here. And what you won't be able to see is just about there, you've got two panels there on the ceiling, and there's another panel on that side right about there. And the reason why we did that is because it's the first reflection points. And this is basically, it's just to kind of give some people, if you're very new to how to set up a room, it can be a bit daunting. There's a lot of information to take on board, and it's like, where do you start? So I wanted to kind of go through a few little things, kind of give you some guidance. And once again, I'm not going to go too much into the technical detail, but I want to show you some resources which I find are really, really good. So the first one, if I take a switch over here to the browser setup, and one of the things I just want to do here is go and have a look on a website for Gik Acoustics. Now these are a great company. They produce and make acoustic acoustic treatment, but they also do a lot of education. So there's a free advice planner calculator on their website. There's obviously their products, and they've got education, so basics of room setup, all their reviews and news, etc. It's a really good resource, and they're based over in the UK, but they ship worldwide. And I will quickly, let me just do a, if I copy that, and I'm just quick pop that in the chat. So if anyone wants to take a look at this, and it's the basic room setup, and it's the basics. Yeah, it really is the basics of room setup. So, when we talk about positioning this, positioning the setup, this is it. I suppose the first and foremost, and one thing I do want to say is, right, we are talking here in ideal circumstances. This is what we would do in an ideal world. But let's be realists. We don't always live in a perfect world. We don't always have, specific rooms that we can use specifically for our music. So I think take some of these tips away and kind of use them to your advantage as best as you can. If you're in a room and your computer's set up in a room where you've got your family in there, then maybe this isn't probably the route for you. If you've got your own dedicated space that you can use for the music, then some of these would be great for you. But I will give you some guidance, but just really kind of make these work for your setup. There are people that say, well, you must do this or you must do that. With all due respect, people say you can't mix or you can't master on the headphones. Yet there's some, top class world class mixing and mastering engineers who do. So just take that on board. But when it comes to positioning the setup, there's a few things around positioning the listening spot, and when it comes to general speaker placement, when you're looking at the room, the normal suggestion is to look at the room in terms of you've got, obviously, or you would generally have two shorter walls and two longer walls. And the normal train of thought is to place your speakers and your desk along a shorter wall. So you have the longer walls going down the length. So you're placing your desk and your speakers against one of the shorter walls, and you have the distance of the room behind you. And then what you want to do is leave some space behind the speakers. So you probably want to pull, if you're placing your monitors on your desk, you probably want to pull your desk away from the wall a little bit. You don't want them right up close against the wall, because that's when you can get some bass build up. You don't really want to do that. So if you can, bring the desk away from the wall somewhat. You really want to start to think about, can you get your desk as close to centre in the room, or so in centre of the wall as possible? That's always a good train of thought, because if you're not in the centre of the wall, then everything's going to be skewed. You're going to have signals bouncing off, in a very uneven manner. So it's all about trying to get the most even and consistent response from your monitoring setup. So Try and have your desk away from the wall if you can. And then this here is quite interesting because this goes on about speaker position. So what it's trying to look at is, it's kind of like the perfect triangle. So you want to set yourself up in your ideal listening position, and you then want to set your speakers up so they are facing your ears in a perfect triangle. So you need to do a little bit of measuring here, and then measure from the centre of the speaker to your left ear, the centre of the speaker to your right ear, and you want to make sure that everything is a perfect distance. So from you to the speakers, and from the speakers to one another, and try and get that as close to an equilateral triangle as possible. So that's going to be the best setup for your speakers, and this goes into it in quite a lot of detail. And then when we're looking at treatment, can be one of these things that it's quite so once again, it's a very in-depth topic because there's so much to consider, and it all depends on the construction of your room, what's in your room, how big the room is, how tall the room is, what material your desk is, how big your speakers are, etc., etc. There's so many issues to kind of consider. But when it comes to acoustic treatment, you will need to a certain degree modify the treatment you apply to the room. But a good place to start is always with the early reflections. And the early reflections are basically thinking about where are the first places that sound's going to be coming out your speakers, and where is it going to first start to hit your ears. And this is really trying to treat the early reflection points, so you can really kind of ensure that your treatment is working at those first reflection points themselves. And there's another link here all about the early reflection points, and I'll do the same again. Let me copy that and let me put that into the chat. And this is, so once again, this is a really good resource because this is going to go through a lot of the details about why you treat the early reflection points, but it's really also, there's a great video here about how you can find out where the early reflection points are, because this is probably the key to all of this. It's okay saying, okay, we need to treat the early reflection points, but what does that actually mean? And there's a trick called the mirror trick is normally what they call it, and it mentions it here. And what you're basically doing is you are going to be sitting in your mixing or mastering position, and you're then going to get someone with a mirror, holding it flat against the wall, and you're trying to look into the mirror and trying to see where the reflection in the mirror hits the speakers. So that's effectively going to give you an idea where the sound's going to come and bounce back from the wall from, and that's really what you're treating as your early reflection points. So this is going to go into it. Really take a look at this video. It's it's quite an in-depth topic, but it's really going to help you to start to look at your room and trying to highlight where those early reflection points are. And generally speaking, there'll be above, so try and do something. If you can do some form of cloud above, that'd be great. And then if you can do generally they're going to be almost directly to the sides, but once again you'll need to do something like the mirror trick to really look at that. So you're going to be one to the sides, one to each side, above, and potentially even behind. So as you can see right about there, I've got that my panel there which I made and put behind the speakers. I've changed the room around, and this is I don't know whether I'm going to put it all back, because I need to start looking at either look at the treatment in this side of the room, or I'm going to have to put everything back that side. I'm still going to have to do the back room anyway, but it's then do I then modify how I really kind of look at the treatment in this room, because what you can't see is like this side is quite exposed walls. So with this side there's some openings, which is like some storage shelves, which can be great for diffusion. One of the things as well, if you've got a very kind of flat wall with nothing in it, and it's very kind of a minimalist setup, you could have kind of lots of things bouncing around all over. And one of the good tips they talk about is diffusion, and diffusion is effectively using material to break up those sound waves and kind of get it more in a very more random kind of fashion. So it's really trying to break up those sound waves rather than just hitting a solid surface and bouncing on. So actually sometimes with a lot of people, they like things like bookshelves because it does really kind of act as some kind of diffusion. But it's if nothing else, this looks quite ghastly, so I need to really kind of sort that out and make it a bit more, a bit more of a nicer appearance. So that's really where I'm at the moment. So I need to really kind of think about it. But really look into your acoustics, because if you want to get that really good consistent sound, then acoustics is certainly the way to go if you can. If you can't, if you're not in an ideal environment that you can't have acoustic treatment, then fair enough. And it might be a case of you might then want to look at going down maybe something like the headphone route, because headphones, using some good quality headphones now, you can get some great results with some of the equipment that's out there. So it's certainly worth checking out. And yeah, so I've got a lot of work to do in this particular room, and it's just trying to. There's so much to go through, and so once again, room placement is one thing. So I've got a desk here. It's quite a small desk. I'm in the process of kind of reviewing, do I need to get a slightly different desk? As I'm getting older, my sight is getting a little bit worse, so I want to try and get myself a little bit further away from the computer screen. So you've got to think about all these different things, and it's not just preserving your hearing, but just think about your eyesight. If you're in a room, this room is poorly lit. I've got a massive, great big box light here. Outside of that, this room is really poorly lit, so it's I'm going to get a little bit more strain in the eyes. So if I could try and think about that and think about your desk and how you set up your desk as well, I need to take all these different things into consideration. One thing that people often forget is about monitors and where you place your monitors. And we've spoken about monitor placement in terms of positioning, but one of the things we need to think about as well is, where do you keep your monitors? Do you just put them on your desk? And it's generally seen as a bit of a no-no. And the reason for that is because if you put your monitors on straight onto a desk, you're going to introduce a lot of vibration, which in itself is going to create more unwanted frequencies, generally a lot more bass than you actually want. And the reason it does that is, if you think about the sound coming out of the speakers, it creates vibration, and if you're vibrating your desk, it's going to build up that energy. So this is when you start to get into conversations in terms of like coupling and decoupling the speakers. And I won't kind of go into that today, but it's something really to start thinking about. And you can build. I mean, I've just literally built 2 speaker stands here. I'll show them in a different video, but they are very, very easy to do. And I used recycled wood, so it was an old shelf that I had, and I really I'm really quite impressed with the results. So effectively what I've done is I've created a simple base, and on the bottom of the base are some rubber pads, and there's quite a large middle section, probably I would say probably somewhere about 12 by 12 centimetres, so 120 mil by 120 mil, and it's inside, it's probably about, I'd say, let's say 20 centimetres tall, and inside is filled with sand. And then on top you've got a top speaker stand which kind of sits on it, which is another bit of wood, and then I've got some specific I don't really know what you'd call them, but they're kind of specific acoustic pads, and the monitor sits on top of the pad rather than sitting direct on the stand. So it's almost kind of like floating on top of the stand. So all of the rubber in the actual in the acoustic pads, it kind of absorbs a lot of the vibration before it even goes into the wood. The sand inside is quite important, because adding mass and weight to the stand minimises the chance of the speaker stands from vibrating. So that's really what we're looking at. We're trying to, I mean, when we're trying to say decoupling, you're trying to effectively stop the speaker from vibrating with hard surfaces. But when it comes to, we're talking about coupling, it's more about, okay, well, how can we then effectively make the monitors as one with either the speaker stands or the desk, and really trying to, it's almost like doing the opposite. With decoupling, you're trying to minimise the contact with surfaces. With coupling, you're almost kind of doing the opposite, because you're really trying to make it one solid big surface. So you might see people, if they're maybe kind of even making hard screwed in kind of structures, kind of stops that potential for vibrations. So that's something to kind of consider as well, is thinking about where you're keeping your monitors. once again, if we're talking ideals, you'd probably want them on speaker stands off of your desk. So then you're not going to have that threat of the desk causing vibrations, and that's why a lot of people would always recommend getting bespoke speaker stands, and then you can get them with almost like a decoupling spike that goes on the bottom, which are they're great for certain types of flooring. Certainly with carpet and things like that, because it's really trying to keep the stands still in that particular circumstance, and really trying to stop as much vibrations as possible. So that's another thing to consider. But they are very easy to make. These things I've done these very cheap, very cheap to do, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you want to know more about how I did it, and let me know, I can certainly do some plans, or provide some kind of some guidance if anyone wants to know about that. So that's another thing you want to consider as well, is about what are your speakers being placed on. Let's just have a quick look. I just want to see if there's any. Okay, there's no questions coming through at the moment. As I say, if anyone's got any questions at all, let me know. More than happy to take any questions. And as I say, I really want this to be kind of as interactive as possible. So if anyone's got any queries or any questions you want answered, doesn't have to be about any of the topics that we're talking about today. Just fire away. Let me know some questions in the chat, and we'll go through them. Okay. So that's basically some of the things that I'm looking at the moment. Probably the biggest headache I've got is computer, and it's I am using quite an old computer, I think it's fair to say. So computers can be quite, once again, it's another one of these things that if you don't know too much about computers, and let me be clear, I'm no computer expert, but I've done a lot of research into what I think is going to make a good PC for me. I've always tended to go on PC over Mac, because it's just more, for me personally, I feel it's more bang for the buck, certainly at the moment. I know a lot of people were saying about the new Mac M1s, and especially the new Mac M1 Mini. My challenge to that, I suppose, at the moment is I looked at this today, and even if you're looking at a Mac M1 Mini, and if you want a terabyte hard drive, so a terabyte solid state drive, and you want 16 gigs of RAM with the M1 Mac Mini, you're looking still around about 1,300 quid. That's a lot of money for what it is, for what you can get for your money in a PC build. That is a heck of a lot of money. But then, a lot of people swear by the Macs and their reliability. I don't have any personal experience with them, but if you like Macs, then certainly there's a lot of suggestion that the Mac M1s, you need to look into also compatibility with your obviously your DAW of choice and your plugins. But if it's compatible, then if you like the Mac route, it's certainly something to go down. But PCs are one of these things where there's so many different ways of looking at it, and a lot of it is going to, once again, it's going to depend on your needs. Because I think, once again, in an ideal situation, if you can have a PC that you can dedicate for your audio, great, then do it. And you can really kind of spec it to how you want it, and really just spec it towards audio. But let's be real, that's not everyone. And for me personally, I don't have two PCs. I have one main PC. At the moment, I've got quite an old PC. It's a Lenovo M900Z, and it's an all-in-one. And it's done me really well. I've been really impressed with it. The processor is an Intel Core i5. It is the 6600. So what does that mean? It doesn't really mean too much. It is a 4-core, so it's a quad-core processor, but it does not have hyper-threading. Now that's quite important. And at the time when I bought this was, it was quite a decent spec computer. A lot of people will recommend, if you're going to say that the thing with when it comes to PCs, you've obviously got to think about, do you go Intel or do you go AMD? So they're obviously the two main processor types, and there are gazillions of different types of AMD processors and Intel processors you can choose. Nowadays, it always used to be the case of you need to go at least quad core, but most of the computers in a say moderate price bracket are probably looking at like hex cores. There's 6 cores anyway. So I do when people say, well, you have to have this processor or you have to have that processor. To be fair, for most people, a moderate run of the mill modern day i5 will be fine. Will be more than fine. It really bugs me when people say you must have an i7, even though there's like i9s now. You must have an i7. That's crap. It really is crap. Because one of the things that we need to understand, and this is once again, it's quite an in-depth topic, and something once again I'm not an expert with, but something that I've understood quite well from the research I've done. It doesn't really matter ultimately about how many cores you have if the core speed is low. So let's say, for example, if you've got an Intel i5, which is a mid-tier processor, and let's say it has 6 cores that run at 3.6 gigahertz, and if you have an i7 that has 8 cores that run at 1.9 gigahertz, then just because it's got more cores does not mean it's going to be a better processor for audio. It doesn't work like that. Most audio processors work, or most audio programs work on the basis of they look at how they process in a single core, and then they don't spread the processing between the different cores. So it's really trying to think about, can you get a good single core speed, and the multiple cores obviously will be better rather than just having one core. So obviously the more you have, the better it will be. But if you can get a good speed, a good single core speed as well, then it's probably going to perform better to have slightly less cores than having more cores with a slower speed. So just to say it's an i7 is rubbish. So think about that as well. So when people say you need to have an i7, you don't. And a lot of the processors now, so the i5, so the Intel Core i5 processors, the 10 series and the 11 series, which are the modern processors, a lot of them will be really good for what you need. If you look at, say, the 10400, the 10500, and the 10600s, they look really good. These are all the i5s. So it's an Intel Core i5, 10400, 10500, 10600. In fact, if you go to 10600K, the K at the end basically just means that it can be overclocked. Now, I don't ever do overclocking. It's not really my bag. I'm not really into it that to that degree. But it is it is seen as a more powerful processor. So if you can get something maybe with a K on the end, maybe that might be slightly better. Depending on, then got to think about price and things like that, and is it worth the additional extra few dollars or extra few pounds for the little bit of performance, once again. But don't feel that you have to go, if you go Intel, don't think you have to have an Intel i7. A lot of the i5s now. In fact, I've been speccing out some builds with some bespoke companies, and a lot of them are recommended the i5 11600K, which is obviously the newer, certainly the newer series. It's the 11th gen Intel i5s. And they are meant to be really good, so it's something to bear in mind. AMD, I may also consider an AMD. I haven't made up my mind yet. AMD have always been one of these, certainly for the past 5 years, has probably been the processors where you get more for your money. Intel have tended to price their processors at a higher price point, and the performance isn't matching the equivalent from AMD at that price point. So AMD are certainly seen as, probably at this moment in time, be interesting to see maybe in 6 months to a year, depending on how the 11th gen, how the 11th generation evolves. But the AMDs are probably seen at this moment in time to be a better processor to go for audio, because you're getting much more for your money. They generally have more cores, and they generally have a greater speed for the cores as well. From what I've been told, also with the motherboards, for AMD motherboards, they also, this is what I've been told, not my own personal experience, but they also apparently handle latency much better. Hi Nick, I'll be upgrading the PC in the next few years once AMD supports Thunderbolt. They do support Thunderbolt. Now, I was speaking to someone today about this, and they were suggesting, right, I think it's the Ryzen 5 5600X. Now it's the motherboard. The motherboard is the crucial thing here, and it's, in fact, I'll tell you what, let me have a quick look. If I go on to, it was someone from Scan. Now Scan are great. They've got this free access, Scan free access systems. Right, let me quickly go back into OBS and let me flick it back onto browser. So what they've got is this free access systems thing. Now Scan are over in the UK, but what they do is they do a lot of these custom built PCs, and it's the Pro Audio PC. And I'm sure it was the audio desktops, and it was this one. So it's a Ryzen 5 5600X configure. I know it's the motherboard that you need to be really careful of. Right, I think it's the Asus Prime B550 Plus. Yeah, I'm sure. So there's got a Thunderbolt option here. So Thunderbolt 3, the Asus Thunderbolt EX3 TR. Was your question more in relation to Thunderbolt 4? So I know that AMD do support Thunderbolt, but wondering if maybe, if I've got that wrong, maybe let's have a quick look. Yeah, so they've certainly got the support for Thunderbolt. It's very much motherboard dependent, because that's the kind of challenge I'm facing. When I've spoken to lots of different people about, even with Intel, I know it's you have to be very kind of particular about the motherboard for Thunderbolt technology. But I'll say this today, that motherboard was the Asus Prime B550 Plus. Let me just see if I can do this here. Now, once again, this is one of the things when it's okay talking about processor and the like, but you've also got to think about your connectivity, because this is the thing when it comes to PC builds. Most, so like here we say USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A and Type C. In fact, what I'll do is I won't go through this now. I did some googling, and there's a list somewhere of the motherboards that support Thunderbolt connectivity. EPU, core to the core, core by design. Storage, connectivity. So that looks like USB Type C. USB-C, Type A connectors, fast USB 3.2. PCIe 4. Okay, let me do some digging. But yeah, so this was the recommendation to me. Actually, it was the recommendation to go down the AMD route and to look at one of these particular motherboards. Once again, I'll have to confirm the model, but that one there was on the scan site suggests the B550. Yeah, Asus Prime B550 Plus. That's compatible with a Thunderbolt. It is. I think it's actually the Thunderbolt card. I think it's is it a PCIe extension card? Yeah, PCIe 3x4, 2 Thunderbolt 3. Yeah, once again, I'm no expert in this, but USB-C which supports 600 watt devices in a daisy chain. Okay, here we are. So this card is compatible with Asus Intel AMD B550 series. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's something to consider. So I'm kind of looking at this from a different angle, and the reason I'm doing this is because of the connectivity, and I think it's one of those things is the areas are murky as Thunderbolt can be delivered over USB Type C. Yeah, I think it's one of those things. It's I really I'll get clarity on this because I did some research and there was a particular resource that showed you all of the motherboards that were Thunderbolt connectable. So I'll dig that out and I'll let you know. I'll probably drop you I'll drop you a separate note, Nick. But yeah, so the processor is one thing, but you've also got to think about, well, how are you going to connect? What are you going to use as your interface? So it's a lot of people would go for USB interfaces with PCs, which is, you know, it's the most common connectivity. But Thunderbolt actually is, by rights, it's the lowest latency connection. So if you're looking for low latency, and one of the things I don't really worry too much about low latency, but I'm really looking for the conversion. So when it comes to mastering, you really want to look at trying to get something that's got a good A to D and D to A conversion process. And one of the things I'm really looking at the moment is the Presonus Quantum 2626. And this is something I really like the look of. So what I've kind of taken a little bit of a step back and think, okay, well, what do I want from an interface? And the conversion for me is probably the critical thing. With mastering grade interfaces, you are looking somewhere in the region of, you know, you're looking at £1,000 plus quite easily just for an interface, and it will be a small interface. And for my needs, I want something that's got good A to D and D to A conversion. I want something that's got mic pre's, because obviously I do the tutorial videos, and I want something that's got loopback, because when I'm doing the tutorials, then I can use the loopback to obviously then capture the system audio as well as the dialogue, and that's something with PC builds. If you're using let's say a standard ASIO driver, it's one of the biggest problems you have with PCs is how can you do that. So I'm looking with something with loopback, and I think I need to look into this a bit more, but the 2626 is looking really, really good. I spoke to some different people about it and made some inquiries, and I think this is going to be a good middle ground. It's not one of these ones that's priced, you know, stupidly. This 2626, I've got a funny feeling this is around about the £500 mark. So it's not, you know, it's not in that kind of like ridiculous price range, and you get a lot for your money. So if you do your recording, you do your mixing and your mastering, then this could be great. For me, I like the idea of this. It's got everything that I need. I may or may not. Headphone amps are probably the other thing for me. Is what do I think? I don't know what the headphone amps are like. I may get a dedicated headphone amp anyway, regardless of what interface I get, because it's, for me, I just want to have that little bit more power just to run the headphones that I've got as well. So Thunderbolt is plug and play PCI equipment's USB. Quantum has very low latency. Yeah, it has. I mean, they're talking about literally like 0.1 milliseconds. Ideal for VST recording if you use a lot of virtual instruments for tracking, definitely. And RMA if the budget was no problem. Drivers is the thing. I'm currently using Motu, and this thing has been great. It has been great, but it's just I really want something to build. I think for me is it's always kind of I've always been one of these people that's kind of like, okay, what's next? What next? It's going to sound quite hypocritical because obviously I'm looking at the next purchase, but I want something that's going to be there for some time. I don't want to always think, okay, I need something else. I need something else. I just want something that's going to be good, stable, consistent, and it's going to last over time. So I'd like to think the Quantum might be the option. So once again, so when you talk about PC builds, think about what you're connecting to it. What do you want to build it around? And if you want to go for, say, the Thunderbolt interface, then you've got to really think about, you know, you've got to really build it around the motherboard rather than the processor, and think about, okay, get your interface first, then think about what motherboard you can have with your Thunderbolt, and then think about what components you can get. And speak to people. I've spoken to people at companies in the UK that I've spoken to are Scan, PC Specialist. They're the two main people I've spoken to at the moment. I've done a lot of other research. don't feel, speak to people, make sure you get the spec right, especially if you want to build it on your own. I know a lot of people out there are trying to build their own PCs these days, to just make sure you get the right components that you need. Check out Czar's channel, he's a quantum music, and I will... Nick, can you do me a favour? Can you just shout out to... Can you just put a link to Czar's channel in the chat, please, mate? If anyone wants any Studio One related recording the mixing guidance, he's great. He's a top bloke. Spoke to him quite a few times, and he's got some great stuff. So if anyone wants to know some more about some of the Studio One, the mixing and the recording side of things and all that kind of thing, he's got a great channel. So check him out. If you can share his channel in the chat, that'd be great. Inputs to me, once again, I only need probably 2, so the quantum is going to be far more than I need. But for me, it's more around the conversion and latency. That's really what I'm looking for. So the latency is more around just the vocal, the dialogue capture. That's really all I'm going to need it for. But it's more around, it's just that conversion process and getting a good price point and something that's going to last and be really consistent over time. Pete Brown, the Microsoft guys on his great source of knowledge about PC music building. Yes, I think I've heard of this Pete Brown. So Nick's made a comment about Pete Brown, the Microsoft guy, and this, am I right in thinking this is the chap that basically done it? It was a massive document about how to really work with, I think, was it Windows 10 and compatibility with Windows 10 and audio and all the different little tips and hints you can do about modifying some of the settings and things. And it was such an in-depth, it was a really great document. Pete Brown. So once again, check that out. If you're watching this and you haven't heard of Pete, I'm sure that's the guy. Check him out. It is such a fascinating. He goes into. He's a Microsoft expert. I'm sure he works. He actually does work for Microsoft, doesn't he? And he goes into all the intricacies and how he can modify. Okay, not sure how to. Let me just quickly go into. If I go back here. Okay. I'll copy that. Paste. There we are. That should be the right link. Okay. So that's cool. So so you've really got to think about building your system around it's not just about maybe getting the right processor, but think about what you're going to use as an interface, and then maybe kind of reverse design around that. And there are loads of people out there who you can speak to about it. I won't really go too much more on computers. Once again, I think with I don't want to go down that AMD and Intel argument, because I don't really know enough about it to really comment too much. But I think it's just one of these things. Is just do a little bit of research and just reach out to people. If you've got any questions, I'm more than happy to help with if you've got any questions and want my advice, then I've done a lot of research, so I'm reaching out to lots of different people, so I'm more than happy to help if you've got any questions on computers. I didn't say interfaces. Once again, interface is really, it is important. I know it's some people see it as a bit of a, you just plug stuff into it and it does, but it's all about, it's not just about actually getting the signal into the interface, it's how you're getting it out and how you're converting it from audio to digital and then digital to audio, digital to analog, and it's then coming back out your speakers. And if your converters aren't good, it's not going to be represented well when it comes out of your headphones or your monitors. Great tip, Nick. Drivers is probably is one of the biggest issues, because once again it's going back to the whole issue of playing back audio, and drivers can. A lot of people, when they say when they're using the interface, and my computer, it's an 8 core, 32 gigs of RAM, SSD, and I turn my sample rate down to, I don't know, whatever, something low, and I start hearing cracks and popples, and cracks and pops. That is generally down to drivers and having poor drivers with the interface. So it's worth doing that bit of research with the drivers. So yeah, very good point, Nick. That is a great suggestion. RME are always one of those companies that are always recommended as having great driver support. I've been really impressed with the Motu, but I say once again, I've never had any problems with the Persona stuff in the past. I've tried quite a few. My first ever interface back in the day was an Audio i2, and I loved that thing. It was just, obviously, I just needed to expand over time, etc. But so I think with the Quantum and with the whole of the ATD and D2A converters they use in that, and with the latency, that's where my head's at the moment. I think it's a different thing as well with Thunderbolt. I've always been USB. This interface here is USB-C. I'm still using a USB 3 port. I don't know how much better the USB-C connection is, but it's also something to consider. You'll probably get USB-C in most modern computers now. So we've had a look at some setup, basics of room placement, some real basics of acoustics, computers, interfaces. Monitoring is probably one of those things where monitoring is always going to be crucial. So whatever you are using to listen to play back the audio, the better quality monitoring you're going to have, obviously the better it's going to translate to you, and the more accurate your decisions are going to be. But I think for me, this is where I think a lot of people slip up, because this is where the marketing people really earn their money. It's like there's always this next product which is always bigger and better, etc., etc., etc. The biggest tip I can always recommend to anyone is just stick with your monitors until you know what they're doing. Once you know your monitors really, really well, you will start to know where their downsides are. And this is the thing: is every room is going to be different. It's going to be based on so much around the construction, the treatment, the size, what you've got in the room, and everything's going to be different. So you really need to know what your speakers sound like in your room, and then it's how then do they translate outside, or how well does the songs translate outside of your room? So let's say, for instance, you've done a mix and master and you've done it on your speakers, you do your export, you then need to take it out of your room and listen to it and compare it to other songs. And this is the thing, is it's then kind of understanding what your monitoring environment sounds like, so you can then compensate to address certain deficiencies. And this is where referencing is really so important. So if you're one of these people who goes out and buys a new set of monitors every 12 months, 18 months, don't. I think that's probably going to be worse for you in the long run. You really need to understand what your monitoring system sounds like, and really get to know the intricacies and how your songs are translating in that monitoring setup. Just buying a new set of speakers, it isn't going to be doing you any good. In fact, it's probably going to be doing you more harm in the long run. Certainly to your wallet, if nothing else to your mixers and masters. So I would always recommend try and stay with the monitoring system for a good long time. I've had these for probably a good probably 5 years, and I know what they sound like really well in this room. And the thing that's putting me off, these are only a 5-inch speaker. They are far too small for mastering. But you know what? I know what they sound like in this room. I know how they translate. And the thing for me is, when it comes to monitoring as well, I'm really starting to get into headphone monitoring, specifically for mastering. And I went and bought a pair of the Olo Audio S4X headphones. They are amazing. But one of the great things about it is I did my first master on the headphones, and I was a little bit kind of, I wouldn't say worried is the right thing, but I thought to myself, I bet there's going to be something that's there's probably going to be differences in how I master on headphones than there are on the monitors. And actually, my first master I did on the headphones, I listened to it back on the monitors, and there was nothing that jumped out to me that was as if to say, I don't like that, I don't like that. And that was really pleasing. The thing with the headphones that I love more than anything is the clarity and the definition. Now, these are not cheap. These headphones are... let me quickly go to Otto's site. Okay. See if I then go to this screen here. So the Otto's are €327, but I tell you what, they are worth every single penny. And there was a particular song that I was listening to. It was an Alterbridge song. I can't for the life of me remember what one it was. But I tell you what, it was so clear and pristine, the sound. The definition on the reverb, the vocal reverb, was just amazing. I've never heard that in the song before. But it's just the way that the reverb tailed off from the vocals. It was just amazing. So if you want to get a really good set of headphones, I would highly recommend the Otto Audio S4X. They're a premium product with a premium price point. But let's be fair, there are a lot of headphones that are way more expensive than this. I'd highly recommend these. I'm going to be doing a full review of these coming very soon, because they really are fantastic. Let's have a quick look at the chat here. Has anyone here used the Slate VSX headphones? The Slate VSX headphones, I don't know anyone. I've heard a lot of good things about them. I think the thing with the VSX, am I right in thinking that the VSX are geared towards a headphone calibration software? I may be wrong on this, but I think they have their own specific headphone calibration software. Now, it's not to say that you can't, if you want to get headphone calibration software, I've got some. I'll be doing a review of that as well. It's very, very soon. You don't necessarily need it with something like the Otto Audio S4X, if I'm being perfectly honest. But I know a lot of people are raving about the Slate VSX. For me, once again, if I'm understanding correctly, I think they're a closed back or a semi-closed back or a semi-open back, depending on how you look at it, headphone. For me, I would still recommend an open back, certainly for mastering, because you are going to get more or less bass build-ups. You're going to get a more natural, clear tone, certainly from my opinion. But once again, I've not tried the Slate VSX. I've heard a lot of good things about them, but I don't know anyone who's tried them themselves. So it's something certainly something to consider. So I would recommend the Otto's. If anyone's looking for them, they're great. The thing I really love about these is they go through and they will really kind of detail what they do to make these. So that, they'll go through all the technologies. They go through not only the technical specs. Every single pair of headphones has its own independent frequency response measured, and you get a graph and you get a chart of that when you get sent through, and it's all explained on the website. I don't know if it's going to show, but I know it's so you can go through the graphs, and it does this comparison against here we go, you get a certificate of authenticity, and it goes through all of the processes that are used to measure them. And it really does. If you look at the full report, you can go through it. It measures all of the frequency responses of all the major headphones. So if you do the full report, download the full report here, and it's okay, how we measure, using measurements to results, etc. Here we are, and you get all the individual graphs, and it does the comparison against. These are the S4X, and if you look down the bottom here, it gives you all of the different measurements for different headphones that they've tried and tested, and it tells you how they've measured them. It's just amazing, and you do, as I say, you do get your I won't get the information out now, but you do get your own measurement response, so you get to know exactly what's happening with your headphones, which I think is just really amazing. It's the attention to detail is just superb. So maybe think about that. But yeah, monitors. So what, just going back to something about monitors. I think my recommendation here at the moment is probably still going to be mastering grade monitors. Let's be clear about this. If you want to get yourself a mastering grade monitor, you're going to be looking around 5 to 10 grand. As simple as that. To get mastering grade monitors, 5 to 10 grand. I haven't got 5 to 10 grand to spend on monitors. So what's the compromise? Well, the compromise is then you've got to think about is, once again, going back to the room and the room acoustics, but there are some middle grounds, and this is something that I'm really interested in at the moment. Just to point out here, I'm not affiliated with any of these companies that I mentioned today. This is just from research, but the one I'm really liking the look of at the moment is the Kali Audio's, the IN8s. Now, these are an 8-inch monitor, but the thing that I really like about these are that they are tri-amped. So most near-field monitors are bi-amped. So you have a woofer and a tweeter. With the tri-amp design, you have also have a tweeter for the high end, you have a woofer for the bass, but you have a mid-range driver, which is going to just really give you more clarity and definition overall from the monitor themselves. The 8-inch, probably for the size of the room here, maybe a little bit too big for my room, but you know what? I'd rather have a bigger monitor and turn it down and listen to it at a more comfortable volume, just so I can really kind of get the additional benefit of the of the actual the quality of the monitor itself. And these are tri-amp design, and it goes to all the different gives you all the information in relation to your frequency responses, and it gives you your crossover points for your frequency responses. So when it comes to your your woofer and your mid-range driver and your tweeter, they'll all have crossover points. And then this is quite interesting, this as well, is it tells you your recommended listening distance. So even with the IN8s is half a metre, well that's fine for me. I should be probably further back, but the 5s is 20 centimetres. So it's something to consider. But these, I think that it's the tri-amped nature of these is the thing that I'm really looking for. So it's trying to get that clarity and that definition from a monitor. I'm still very much kind of, the way I'm leaning at the moment is I'm still very much leaning more towards the Olos as probably 60 to 75% of all of my mastering, but I still like the response I get from a monitor. So I'm thinking about how can I have almost like that dual setup, and certainly in a small room like this, I think these could be really, really good for that. So, so that's really just as a bit of an information about about some of the monitors. I'm using the KOK-G3, which is a three-way speaker. It was fine when I was in my old place, which is a bigger room. A smaller place now, they are overkill is near. Yeah, that's the trouble. That is the trouble. Is when you start to get into a bigger monitor, you've got to think about, once again, are they going to be suitable for your environment? And it's one of the things I'm really I'm worried. I certainly won't be getting rid of these monitors here, because if I do say get something like the IN8, and I do find that I'm you've got to give them time and let them break in. And once again, it's not something where you want to be chopping and changing every 6 to 12 months. But if I'm really finding that the 8-inch speaker is too big, then I may just go back to these 5 inches and maybe rely more on the headphones, and then maybe use the monitors as a cross reference, and go down that route. The IN8s, the Kali Audio IN8s. So it's called Project Independence. So the IN series. And they do a 5-inch and an 8-inch. Even the 5-inch are tri-amped, I believe. So maybe that might be a middle ground for me, is to look at the 5-inch. A lot of things to think about. Price point, these are actually a really good price point as well. So for the pair, I think, looking at this, I think they were $375, $349. So what's that? So $700 is around about 500 quid, which for an 8-inch tri-amped design is, once again, it's great for that price point, I think. And the Kalis, I'm hearing a lot of good things. They do the other line they do are the LP series. which I'm hearing a lot of good things about as well, and they're even more budget friendly. So if you want something more for your mixing, then maybe LP series might be better. But if you probably want something for mastering as well, I'd recommend the IN more, purely because they've got that Triumph design. So you should get more clarity and that definition from the Triumph design. So that's something I'm going to look into as well. Last thing I just wanted to quickly discuss is probably the most underrated thing that I've got on the list to discuss, but actually it's decor, and it's one of the things that we do not consider, especially us blokes, right? We're not the kind of, I'm certainly talking for myself. We probably, we are very functional people, and this room is probably what you describe as very functional rather than pretty as such. But let's face it, if we are comfortable in our room and we have somewhere that we enjoy going and it looks nice, it's a nice environment to be in, especially if we're spending hours upon hours in that environment, then you should be making the room presentable. And whether it's going back to the lighting or, once again, I said it just needs, this room here, I know what the room sounds like, it's a great room, but something I need to do is actually do something about the decor, and it's whether it's just hanging some curtains. Curtains can be great for deadening some sounds. If you've got a lot of natural reverberation in the room, getting some curtains, some thick curtains, and putting them up. So here are the two open spaces with the shelving units. They will be covered up by curtains. There's a window right here, so I need to get some thicker curtains for here. I'm just thinking, more I think about it, I'm probably going to move the desk back and then use this more. I will treat this wall. There's a ghastly pipe down here, and I'm looking at the GIK, and they do some panels with art designs on. That would be great, I think, as a feature for the back wall. Probably a curtain over there, and probably a curtain over there. The thing with this room, because this is it's a basement room, I say there's not many corners, and what I mean by that is not very corners. That over there goes under the stairs, so that's actually an entrance. So the wall is here, and there's an entrance there, and there's an entrance there. So that having the desk here, technically there's no corners. So where you'd normally have in your say corners for base builder, that's something I really need to kind of look at. What am I getting over there? And that's maybe something I need to reach out for some more official advice. And I mentioned the GIK guys earlier on. They do so much for education and support and guidance that I really think, even if you do nothing else but check out their website, you can do so much, get so much information that's going to help you with your room acoustics. And I think that I'll certainly be reaching out to them, and I will buy something specific for this room. I think I've always had this bit of a downside, or not a downside, but I've always had this bit of a downer on companies that make acoustic treatment. Because let's be fair, some of the panels that you can buy, I have made a lot of these ones here for less than a third of the price of a bought one. But they give away so much information and knowledge for free that actually, thinking about it, the price that they charge for some of these panels for what you were getting as a service, I think it's well worth it. So I will certainly be reaching out to the guys at GIK and getting some more guidance around that as well. So what's going to happen here in these corners? But the decor is like, it's just going back to it and thinking about just trying to break up the room a bit and make it more pleasing, especially when it comes to lighting and things like that. Just having, if you like neon lights, have some neon lights. Anyone who's seen Guy Mitchell Moore, Think Space Education, and if you see him in his main studio, he's got the lights around his panels, fantastic. And it just gives it really something, just a completely different look. I've got an old leather sofa in here that probably needs to go. I don't know if to get rid of it completely or just get something that's not leather. Because once again, you've got leather, it's a hard surface, so frequencies bounce off that. Where if you get something that's a softer material and absorbable, it will absorb frequencies rather than make it bounce off. So that will probably go, and I'll probably look to get something else as well. So it's something to consider, is the decor in the room. So I describe myself: functional, not exactly aesthetically pleasing. Yeah, you and me both, mate. You and me both. Go back to building a PC setup. Get yourself a decent sized monitor, as big as you can fit between your two speakers. Yeah, yeah. And once again, I would I think the downside with the all-in-one, I liked the all-in-one because it's got a 24-inch screen, which is more than enough for what I need. The problem is it's the stand. Where the stand is, the way they design the stand is it's kind of like almost on like I don't know if you'd call it like a Z bracket or a V bracket, but effectively it pushes the screen forward. So the screen, flat part of the screen, is on the outside edge of the stand. So you're basically losing probably 4 inches worth of desk space with the all-in-one. So yeah, once again, not only go for a decent sized monitor, but also maybe get one with a stand where you can get that maybe sits further back on your desk, because some of these audio desks, they're not the depth isn't the greatest. So if you can get something that pushes the screen back a little bit as well, it's just going to help your eyes in the long run and get less eye strain. Just beware as well with the bigger screen you get as well, and you put it in between your speakers. You do just have to pay a little bit of attention. It's another hard flat surface, so you will get frequencies bouncing off your screen. If you look at even some desk designs now, they will have a slight gradient to the actual desk, so you're not going to get a flat bounce down and up back off the desk. It's something to consider as well. Screen viewing state is really important with workflow when you're spending a lot of time looking at your door. Absolutely, yeah. Dual screens could be another one. I really should get a dual screen set up here for nothing else, just for OBS, or get a tablet. Maybe that's something else to consider as well. If you've got a tablet somewhere, maybe you could use your tablet to kind of do some viewing on and things like that. Well, actually, just thinking about it aloud, it's great for someone who does their like using OBS and that kind of thing. Maybe not perfectly for someone who's just using the door. They're not doing any live streaming and stuff like that. So dual monitors, bigger real estate, bigger screen. It's always going to be good to look at. That's basically all I wanted to cover. Yeah, and it's basically I really want this to be. The good thing about it is that once again I've got some time to do it. I've got some budget to do it, and I really want to help, give as much information back as possible. So I really want to document this process of going through what my thought process is, what information I've found out. Let's be clear, I'm not an acoustics expert, so a lot of this is going to be, trying to find out as much information as possible. Like with the stands, it wasn't a case of just making a basic stand. It was really kind of understanding about what you need to do, to build a stand, and I really want to kind of document this process to help you guys as much as well, because I'm learning all the time about this setup, and if I can then share that knowledge back with you guys, then hopefully it's going to help you folks too. So I really really want to share this with you folks. Does anyone have any questions? If there's anyone online now, let's go back to the full screen mode, go back to have a look at my ugly mug, and I can flick on over here. So we've got okay, so we've got a few people online now. Anyone else got any questions at all? Thanks to Livestream. I'll check out the case speakers. No worries, Nick, and thanks again for your support. So just leave it a few more minutes to see if anyone comes back with any more questions. Once again, if anyone wants to look into any of the mastering services, then I'll put a note at the beginning of the live stream. So I'm open for any mastering, decent rates. Mastering at itb.com. Once again, I'm also looking for songs to feature on the YouTube channel itself. So if you're interested and you want once again, you want to have your music featured on the channel, get in touch. Email me, smudge@masteringitb.com, and let's have a chat and let's see what we can do. Because I say, once again, it's I'd really like to get some more, some more songs available. I've been using a lot of the Cambridge Audio stuff, but I need to move away from that now. Certainly with the changes in some of the YouTube terms and conditions, and with advertising and things, and all that kind of thing. I can't really use too much of the Cambridge stuff for this particular content. So if anyone wants to have their song featured on the channel, get in touch. If anyone wants to support the channel, then once again, there's links in the description here for buymeacoffee.com, which is www.buymeacoffee.com/mastering in the box. And then lastly, we've got the mix and master critiquing service. So this is something that I've introduced because I've been having a lot of people come to me and saying, look, what do I need for? I need help for this, or I need help for that, and I want this to be really an all-encompassing service. And it's not just a case of I'll listen to your song and make a few notes. There is so much that that I want to try and offer here. It could be actually some more formal guidance. So one of the things that we've put on the Fiverr.com website is around maybe doing some video commentary to go along with it. So you're actually getting a real understanding of where I'm looking at things, and I can actually go in and maybe make a few tweaks in real time, and so you can then go back and just see what I've done to kind of try and emphasise the certain things that I think would make the song better. But it's really just I really want this to be a good service for people to really help develop their skills. There's nothing better than doing it yourself and learning. There really isn't, and it's as much as I can help you, there is a lot of trial and error, and it's just kind of like it's maybe just having a little difference of opinion, just someone else having saying, well, have you tried this? And you think, oh, actually no, I didn't think of that, but I've done that before, and you kind of go at a different angle. So really try something different. So it's Fiverr.com, www.fiverr.com /smudge, and there'll be details there of the mixing and mastering critiquing service. And if you just want something simple, like just a narrative of the song, what I feel could be done to really kind of take that track a bit further, we can do that. Or if you want something more in depth, like we can just say video discussions, or we can do some kind of recording where I go through and record my critique and show you about some different techniques and how you can really take it to that next level, then all of that's available through the Fiverr.com. I will be doing some one-to-one sessions at some point very soon, so that's something that's going to be coming up. And yeah, I love doing all this, and it's really. But the thing I really like is getting making sure that you guys are getting enough from these videos, and that you guys are getting the benefit from it. And I'm getting some really good feedback, so I'm really happy that you guys are finding use for these, and I just love doing it. My music is my passion anyway, but being able to listen to other people and the way they approach songs and what they've done and how they write songs, it's just amazing, and I just love it. So if there's any way that I can help in any way, shape or form, once get in touch, smudge@masteringitb.com. There was one thing that I did need to mention, which I forgot to write down earlier on. Last live stream I did some shout outs, and here we are. So I did some shout outs, and this I just want to shout out to follower Gik Armstrong. And he's been working on a spreadsheet that helps him keep track of settings for each project that he works on. So he basically looked at one of my videos I did last year of how to master a song in Studio One using stock plugins, and he wanted to document and be able to reproduce what he was doing. So he was using it really as a kind of a guide to help him grow his knowledge and understand different parts of mastering. But he created this actual mastering document, and he said maybe it's a useful tool for others too. It could easily be altered for any plugin. So it's something that I will be sharing with you at some point. This is not something that I've done. This is Jack, what he's done. Jack Armstrong. Big shout out to him. I think this is great. This is what I really want this to be, a real good community. And so I want a big shout out to him for doing this. And this, I'll likely, with his permission, hopefully I'll get something added onto the website. And maybe we can just do a bit of a review, and I'll link into it in a future video, so we can, for you guys, you can use that as well. It's great what he's done. He's using it as kind of a guide for him to be able to reproduce what he's doing, and so he can build his knowledge. And if someone else can get the benefit from that as well, then great. So big shout out to you, Jack, and thanks for sending that over. And then I'll be in touch soon, and let's have a discussion around how we can get that spread out to the rest of the guys if they want it. So big shout out to you. Okay, well, it's now 9:15, so we'll give it a couple more minutes. So if anyone's got any more questions, let us know in the chat. Otherwise we'll call it an early night. My beer is getting a little bit warm. Nothing worse than warm beer. Actually, cold coffee. Cold coffee's worse than warm beer, I think. I'm not really a lager drinker. I had this very hot today, so I chose a cheeky, let's say it's a light can of beer in a blue can. I won't say the brand. Not bad though. I'm much more usually a real ale guy. Anything that's IPA, APA, brilliant. I've even got right into stout. Some of the chocolate or coffee stouts are lovely. I don't know if any of you guys have seen Jason Stallworth. He's a metal guitarist, another Studio One user. Let me see if I can just quickly... I'll get his YouTube channel. He does I think it's called Metal and Beer. He's got a separate channel called Metal and Beer. Top bloke. Here we are. So this is his main channel, but he's got another one called yeah, I'm sure it's Metal and Beer it's called. Check him out. So let's put that in the chat as well. Okay, right, well I'm still here, but it looks as if my webcam has died, even though it's playing back on my phone and the app is running on the screen. Oh, here we go, we're back. We're back. Don't know what happened there. Right, so... Alright, as there's no more questions coming through. Well, what better way to end then? As my phone's obviously just telling me to shut up waffling and get on with it. So thank you once again for all your support, guys. As I say, I'll be doing the giveaway very, very soon. And yeah, thanks for all the support. And I hope you enjoy these live streams. I love doing it. It'll be once a month, and there'll be more content coming your way very, very soon. As I say, I've got a lot more time now to be getting on with lots of different content for you guys. And if you've got any suggestions, then just drop me a note, smudge@masteringitb.com, or let me know in the comments down below. If you've got any content you like covered, then any feedback would be greatly appreciated. So thanks once again, and I hope you'll keep safe and well, and I'll see you in the next video or live stream coming real soon. Thanks, guys.